this episode, I get to speak with a fellow legal innovator from across the world, Esther Etim. After studying law and having several legal degrees under her belt, the day before she went to take the final exam, she realized that being a lawyer was just not for her or the lifestyle she was working on creating. So she decided to pave her own path. Sound familiar? Listen in for more.
Need an extra set of hands for a case that requires a little more investigation work? Check out our proud sponsor of Season 3, Affirm Investigative Solutions, where you get the tailored and personal care for your case when you need it most. With over 10 years of experience, Affirm Investigative Solutions makes the process easy. Set up a call, develop a plan, and then execute that plan. Affirm Investigative Solutions, the litigation partner that has your back.
Hi, Esther. Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. We have spoken a couple times, so that's pretty interesting because I don't get to speak to my guests very often right before they come on or sometimes at all. So you have an interesting story in general, and I know the audience is going to be very intrigued on your story as well. So we can briefly go into that probably later on in the podcast if we have time for it. If not, we'll do maybe another little segment for you. So depending on how it goes right now. But we want to really focus on the audience right now. The bulk of our audience is paralegals, legal professionals, lawyers in general, right? Trying to find their way, trying to either get empowered or find something that is meaningful, right? There's a lot of burnout. There's a lot of depression. There's a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress in the legal industry. I think we're rated, I believe it's either, we got up to number 2, I believe, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that, to the highest suicide rates, legal professionals. We're always under a lot of stress. So balancing that plus trying to balance our life, plus balancing the work, it can create a lot of chaos in general. And so I love how you say showing up. And I know you said that we're going to talk about that very loosely. So maybe we can go into showing up and being the best you, right, possible. Understanding that there are other elements to our lives that sometimes may deter us from that, or sometimes may create this negative, I guess, negativity, negative bias, negative thoughts that can prevent us from moving forward in our lives in general. So talk a little bit more about that, and I guess we'll go from there.
Okay. So thank you so much for having me on. The main thing that I do is I help women in law and in media to develop stronger voices, because you want to be heard one way or the other, to develop solid careers and more stable personal lives, because you don't want to be that caricature or that stereotype of, boss woman who doesn't have a personal life, or someone whose personal life, in quote, gets in the way of the career. And so one of the main things that I've discovered, I come from, in terms of academic sense, I come from a law background. So I have a law degree from the University of Kent in Canterbury in the UK, as well as a postgraduate certificate in food law from De Montfort University in Leicester, also in the UK. Long story about why I chose that. But one of the things that I remember growing up was watching American legal drama series, where it was always one of two things. Either the female lawyer was portrayed as really flirty and kind of dumb and sort of just got results by sheer luck, or it was the other extreme where she was just really cold and didn't smile, and people were afraid of her, and she did not have a life. And just going through my law degree and just looking at the different kinds of people, that there were different kinds of women that were there. I remember I think it was my first year or my second year at uni. In the UK, a law degree, a regular law degree takes 3 years to do, undergrad. And I think it was my first year, my second year, I don't remember which, but we had solicitors come into the uni and so just to talk to us about what to expect and all that. And I remember that being the point. Yeah, it had to be my second year because I remember that being the point where I started to have doubts about going into law as a career because the women that I saw were very successful, but they were hardened. I don't know if that makes sense. They were pretty, but their eyes, I don't know what it was. It was they were hardened. And I remember this one who talked about how she had she made a lot of money, enough to hire a personal shopper. But that wasn't what was the problem for me. The problem was she needed a personal shopper because she couldn't go out and buy her own clothes. And I'm like, but you're earning that money. You don't have time to go and spend this money that you're making to actually enjoy this. So it's not like, oh, I don't know fashion or I don't know fashion trends, so let me get help. It's I literally won't have any clothes to wear because I don't have time to leave the office. And then there was this other one talking about how she had to, there was something about not being able to go on a family holiday that she was paying half off and that she and her husband had booked well in advance. And I remember thinking, no, this is not a life. I can't, you can't work so hard that you can financially afford this thing and your children know, yes, this is what mommy does. So they built up this vacation thing in their head because that's what happens. And then time for the vacation, you're like, oh no, you guys can go with your dad. So that's, you can't, this thing they've built up, you can't do that because you're working and you have to keep working so that you can stay on top of your game. And then there was this one who couldn't she couldn't go drop her child off at university for the first time. And at that point, I was like, something's wrong. This is no,
like
I
there's the
get
balance, right?
Yeah. And these were women that worked in the city. In the UK, there's this part of London that we call the city, and it's financial London. So it's where I think these are called the magic circle firms. So it's where the investment banks and all that were.
Like a Wall
And
Street, like in New York.
yes. That's what it would be, but the London equivalent. And I'm thinking this can't be right. There has to be another way for me to, if I'm gonna do this, enjoy a career that I love, that loves me back, and that I can have a personal life as well, because I'm not gonna spend my entire life in the office and traveling at the beck and call of somebody who's not even my underage child. This is ridiculous. And I eventually ended up not going to law school. So on the day of my final exam, it just hit me, you don't actually want to become a lawyer. Just finish this degree and figure out later on. But even after that, and then getting my postgraduate in food law, because I just thought it was just going to be really interesting, which it was, and I liked doing it. And I thought, yes, this is something different, because a lot of people that were doing master's degrees at the time, they were doing it in like very normal things and very popular things like commercial law and banking or something. And I thought, no, food law. So even sometimes when I say it now, people think they've misheard and they're like, wait, there's something. Did you actually say what I thought you said? You said food law, that's a real thing. I'm like, yeah, that's an actual real thing. And I found out that even after getting that degree and returning to Nigeria and then talking to women who are lawyers or who are just in law, so they are paralegals or legal secretaries and all that, finding out that one, the confidence level is not as great as you would assume just looking at them from the outside. There are women that feel like, I'm not going to be taken seriously because I'm a woman, so I can't speak up in a room full of lawyers. I mean, I can speak to a client because I'm supposed to, I'm supposed to be able to do that. But I can't speak up in a room full of other lawyers because one, the seniority thing. So if they are too very senior, so I can't speak up. But on the other hand, you find out that if you're not speaking up, then they don't know you and they don't know what you're able to bring to the table. So of course, when time for certain juicy cases come or certain opportunities and all that, you get bypassed, right? And you can't, there's this thing that I say, which is that nice girl, I mean, I heard it somewhere, nice girls never make history. And so you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna be cute and somebody's gonna notice me. No, do you have any idea how many lawyers are, or how many people who are legally qualified in one way or the other? Do you know how many they are in existence? So why would somebody notice you when you're not speaking up? In other words, you're not marketing yourself, right? And some people kind of feel, well, I want to market myself. I want people to know what I can do, but I don't want to be, I don't want to come across as obnoxious and a know-it-all. And so there's that line of, okay, what do I do? And so there's also that thing of where some women feel like, I don't really know how to show up. So in Nigeria, there's a definite uniform for lawyers and practice. Like you can wear certain other things when you're not in court, but you have to wear white and black, and it has to be a skirt. You can't wear trousers if you're female and all that. And then you have to put on the wig and the coat if you're in High Court or the Appeal Court or Supreme Court. And so that whole thing, sometimes I don't know how to show up. Like I know how to show up physically because this is what I've been told to do, but I don't know how to show up in a way that makes me stand out, yet not threaten anybody's sensibilities to the point where it would be counted against me. Because people at the bar, they have very long memories. If you mess up one time, like they might not say to you, to your face, but yeah, just know it's going on a record somewhere, right? Okay. And so that's basically what I help women do. And like I said, you need to have a stronger voice, and a stronger voice doesn't mean shouting. I'm like, please don't shout, especially if you don't absolutely have to. Don't shout at anybody, but there is a way to do that in a way that suits you. So when I say in a way that suits you, I mean your temperament, your experience, everything that makes you you. So one woman can be gregarious and another can be more reserved, and that is their actual nature. But it doesn't mean that when it comes down to the work, it doesn't necessarily mean that one is less valuable or her output is not as important as the other one. I mean, at the end of the day, like some people, personally, I'm what I think people will call an introverted extrovert. On a normal day, I would just be on my own. I don't want to say anything. I don't want to, I just want to be left alone to just do my own work. But you have to interact with other people. And so when sometimes some people see me in the media or see me out and about, they go, oh my gosh, like, she's doing all that, so she must want to be out all the time. I'm like, no, I don't. This is called work. So yeah. Even my other half, when we first got together, he was a bit concerned because he was like, well, you're doing all this media stuff. Don't you find me boring? And I'm like, no, all this media stuff I'm doing, this is called work. I don't like my real like off work persona is this person is, I'm fine with you. I don't want you, please don't go and be all gregarious and all that. Like, I'm like, if I wanted to be with someone like that, I know where to find them, I would go and find them. Right. So it's, it is really important for a woman in law, whether it's a paralegal, to on some level, yeah, be proactive, because like I said, if you're not, nobody's going to notice you. Like, you're not going to just sit there and be pretty and people are going to notice you. I mean, even in beauty contests, which some would say is kind of based on how you look, like how pretty you look, you need to bring something else to the table that makes you stand out and for people to remember you. That's the thing I always say, be memorable for the right reasons. So when I attend events and I want to be remembered, first of all, the way that I dress in something that I know nobody else is going to be wearing. But if I can't help that, because obviously I don't, sometimes you don't know, I make sure that I ask certain questions. There are questions that you ask that the people you're talking to definitely remember you. They have to. They're
Yes.
not, they're not stupid questions or they're not insulting questions, but they're very, the kind of questions that make them know, oh, okay, this person was really listening and they really took something away and they want to know more. So in scenarios like that, it's, what I do and what I advise women in law to do, to basically get noticed,
Yeah.
or else
And I think one of the
nobody,
best ways to get noticed is to get personable. A lot of people don't like to mix the personal with the professional, but most of my impactful moments and most of my connections were because I got personal. Perfect example, my LinkedIn post. Most of the ones that I get the highest comments, the highest shares are when I introduce a little story about my kids or my day. And then at the end, I'll end it with a professional note. But knowing, I think reminding people that you're still human, right? That you're still a
yeah,
mom, that you're still this and you're still that, and you're still able to do all these things.
yeah,
Really sets the tone for people, and they're like, oh my gosh, she's a mom of two, like I didn't even know that, I wouldn't have even known, you know what I mean? Like a lot of people get really intrigued when they find out I'm a mom, because that for some reason adds like an extra layer. And I'm a mom that's, like you said, very present, drop off and pick up at school, extracurricular activities, and still running the business. So understanding, I guess, giving that example to people, right? And then back to your example about when you're networking and that personal touch. Oh wow, you have children, so do I. My kids are, how old are your kids? Oh my goodness, what do they do? What are they into? Are they into karate, dance, any sports?
yeah,
Really making that connection memorable, like you said, in a good way,
yes.
really will remind people, and you'll stay in the forefront of their minds. They'll be like, oh my god, that person was so nice, and they have kids too, and their kids do karate as well, and they'll understand and they'll remember you in a way where it's like, wow, they're just human, just like me, right? I think people just
Absolutely.
forget that we're human.
Yeah, yeah. And even when I, talking about networking, it's not just physically in person, it's even on LinkedIn,
Oh yeah.
right? So sometimes people will just, I have no idea why people do this. They'll just like click connect or something. And I'm like, but you don't know me, I don't know you. And, you could be a stalker for all I know and a deranged
That's
person.
why they have that add note, right, where you add a
Yeah.
little
And
message.
so I was talking to somebody who had sent out, this was an email that she sent for an event that she was trying to have. And I told her, you should have sent me this email to check before you sent it out to all these people, because she had come back to me saying, well, these people that she's trying to invite as speakers didn't want to, they were all saying no. And I'm like, what did you tell them? And I saw it and I was like, well, this is why you don't introduce yourself to people like this. You need to make them know that, first of all, you know what they're about, and then you craft whatever it is that you're saying, just like I do on LinkedIn. Whatever it is that is your message or is your, whatever it is that you're about, to meet their own need. So the way, and I'm like, you're thinking about this as an email, but think about it as if you were in front of this person.
Absolutely.
Physically. Everything that you've said in this email, would you say this to a complete stranger? Would you say the way you've said it? And she said no. And I'm like, so this is why you're getting this result.
Right.
And so going back to that, when you're networking, whether it's in person or online, in an email, in in a LinkedIn connect message, whatever it is. And for women in law, whether you're a paralegal who is trying to get more business, so you're trying to get a law firm to hire you, I'm like, first of all, assume that they get 200 people reaching out to them. on the same day, right? They might not, but just assume that. What would you say to them to make yourself stand out? For they're not, if you, I mean, LinkedIn doesn't have a very long, it's not like, the length is not like an email length, but if you were to send an email, that length, nobody's going to stand there and wait for you to say all that, right? So think about, it's the elevator pitch. Think and be concise. What is it that you have that this person might be looking for? Meaning that you have to do a bit of research into what that party is looking for, what they do, and why would you be the best person, right? So it also gives that personal touch. So it's not oh, I have a degree in this and I went to this school. At the end of the day, what does that actually mean?
Right.
That doesn't
No,
add anything
I got
to.
the firm $5 billion in the first 30 days of me working there. It's
Exactly.
impressive.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people can do that.
Yeah.
I brought in, 10 clients on average, on a monthly average. I
Exactly.
created opportunity through network events. I handled the network events for my previous law firm. Not a lot of legal assistants or paralegals do that, which I used
Can
to do.
do that.
Yeah, they would send me out
Yeah.
to promote the law firm because of
Yeah.
my personality and because of my value. They knew that I could bring value to those network events. So understanding that you can bring more than just your skills and your education.
Yes.
Thinking outside the box, being a little more innovative, understanding that there's opportunity outside your 9 to 5. These opportunities don't have to just stay close to the law firms. Let's say you want to run network events for multiple law firms or for paralegal organizations, or sit on an advisory board for a college that you graduated from. There's a lot of opportunity out there that can bring you exposure and add to your resume. And yes, sometimes they're free, right? Because when you're on advisory boards or you're a member of a bar or something like that, you're providing your time. But I think sometimes time is more valuable than the monetary value that we so always want to look for. Sometimes opportunity presents itself and you're like, wow, that's great on my resume. Like, not a lot of people are going to be the chair of this bar association. Not a lot of people are going to be on the advisory. So adding those elements, adding that flavor, right, to your resume, to your cover letters. A lot of people discard cover letters, but I think a cover letter is kind of like what you were saying. It's a very nice introduction to you and to who you are and to why, first of all, why do you want to join this organization? It should always be your number one, I guess, best foot forward. You should always say, I want to join your organization because I love that you support our local community and I'm a big advocate of improving our community. I love what you do with your investments overseas because I'm from that country, and that country, obviously that country I call home. Little personal things that obviously make that impact. And it could just be a one sentence or a one word that can really put you to the top of the list. Because like you said, they're reviewing hundreds, if not sometimes thousands of resumes, depending on the size of the firm and the popularity of the company. So really putting yourself out there, and really saying, I really want to work for you because of this, this, and this. And this is what I think I bring value. I think I'll be great at your network events. I think I would be amazing for your outreach programs. I love to volunteer for my community. It's something I already do. Right. So understanding that these things that you love to do outside of your work can actually be your work, right? Can actually help you with your jobs, which I think is why hobbies was never really a thing on your resume. Like, people didn't really put like what their hobbies were or extracurriculum activities were on their resume. And I think maybe within recent times is when more people started putting, hey, I love to dance, I love music, I love, community outreach programs, I love to volunteer, I love dogs, whatever it is, right? Whatever, whatever your passion is, right? Because sometimes your job is your job. You love your job, but sometimes there's something else that calls for you.
Yes.
So understanding, putting the human back into your resumes and your cover letters and your networking and your social media posts, and always understand that you're representing not only a company sometimes if you're working for a company, but you represent yourself. That's most important. How are you representing yourself to the world, because social media is worldwide. So once you put a post out there, no matter how many privacy
Settings or
settings you have on your social media, it's bound to get into the wrong hands. So understand that you're always putting your best foot forward. You're always putting your whatever you want the world to look at you, it's you. You're the one that has control of that narrative.
hmm.
And so I love what you do. Do you have any, I guess I would say, like tips, like just practical tips that, paralegals, legal assistants, even attorneys can do like on a day-to-day basis? Because we all know that what we're talking about is not going to happen overnight. It's definitely a
No.
skill that needs to be learned. But anything that you think that the audience can take away and can work on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, that's that yeah. So the first thing that I would say is decide where you are now with an eye on where you would like to be. So it's that thing of define it for yourself. Otherwise, somebody else is going to define it for you and you're not going to like it, right? And this is something that some people might wonder, oh, I didn't think about it that way. But it is actually personal branding.
Yes.
When you talk about personal branding, some people think, oh, it's just a media thing, or it's just for writers and actors or whatever. But if you think about the fact that personal branding is not just your reputation, it's what others. It goes a bit beyond what you do. It's what people truly believe of you, right? And so if you decide, okay, I'm working from home right now, and at some point in the future, I would like to have an office and hire other paralegals. You know what your weaknesses are right now. I mean, I'm hoping that you do, and you know what your strengths are right now, so that you're not completely paralyzed. Because you see, if you think, oh, the goal is to have this massive office in the center of my town, which is very expensive, right? The lease or whatever is very expensive with other paralegals. But right now, you don't have that money and you don't have the credit and you don't have, it can, in some ways, it can paralyze you into thinking, oh, I don't have that, so I'm not going to do anything about it, which is ridiculous because where you are right now, you don't even need that stuff that you've projected, right? So if you think to yourself, first of all, decide where you are right now and keep an eye on the future. And the reason that I say to keep an eye on the future is because if you keep an eye on the future, you are forced to make progress. So you don't think of yourself as this person, this one paralegal who is working from your bedroom permanently. So if you're thinking of thinking like somebody who would ideally want to have this big paralegal agency, that means that even your productivity and your professionalism, the way that you behave and the way you think, you start to, because you're thinking like that person, you start to work towards it, right? So yes, you have a life and life happens and a child might get sick and all that, but you might have a small part of your room or your house where it's just a table, like the whole world doesn't need to know it's a table. It's just a table. But when you get in there, you are in official mode and you go, right, this is, and you give your clients results um, that make that person who would have the full office full of paralegals and hire other paralegals. So that kind of makes sense, right? Because you don't want to be, I mean, I run a publishing firm. And I remember my very, very first client, apart from myself, so somebody else that hired me, at the time, I had the paperwork. So I had I had registered the company, but I didn't have ISBNs, right? And so I had to like think about, okay, what? So is that going to now be the thing that stops me from operating as a
Right.
publisher? No,
Right.
because when I think about the fact that if I want these books, I mean, some people can publish on Amazon without ISBNs, but they're not going to get into certain organizations. Right now, I am, if not the only publisher in Nigeria, one of the very few whose books are in libraries abroad. They're not just available to libraries, they're they're in libraries. And these aren't even physical books, these are ebooks. Because from years ago, when we registered the paperwork to say, oh, okay, start a publishing firm, I said, right, I'm going to do the work, I'm going to do whatever it takes, get these ISBNs, because I knew that was the only thing that, that would really stop that dream from happening. Because I knew, right, I'm a small publisher, I'm not the now big four, like, because Random House bought Simon & Schuster, so they're now big four. I'm not that yet, but I can still look at that goal and work towards that, right? So that's one thing. The second thing, and this is something that if someone had told me this when I was much younger, this would have been my life so easy. But it is to learn how to recognize people, things, and situations for what they are, not what your ego or emotion would prefer, and treat them accordingly. Now, whether it's a human being or a situation, a meeting, like I have gone into meetings and being completely like pleasantly surprised by the outcome, because sometimes you even the way that you show up online, sometimes the conversations that you have, and it can work the opposite as well. So I would say some of my greatest regrets have been from not recognizing people, certain people, things, and situations for what they actually are. So someone can say, oh yeah, this is my BFF, and she agreed to do the bookkeeping for me. And but your BFF does not have the talent required or the skills required. She's going to get in trouble with the IRS. And you're not going to be able to fire her because you're thinking, this is my BFF, I don't want to ruin our friendship. She's your BFF. She's not your bookkeeper. She's not your accountant. Why are you doing that? Because your emotion has told you, oh, because she offered, even when she's not been a friend of me and she has good intentions, she doesn't have those skills. And unfortunately, when your clients or whomever, even as a paralegal, like if you've got somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, and that's the first person your clients or your customers see, that's what goes in their mind as, oh, this is how this person does her business. They're very rarely gonna come back to you to ask for an explanation. And when they hear and when they make up their minds that this is how you do business, that's what they're telling other people. So you're gonna find out that even if you've got the money, you're doing all this advertising and you're wasting money. And the people, they've already made up their minds about you because of, some sort of thing that went wrong with your personal branding because you didn't recognize a certain thing, a situation or a person for what they are and treat them accordingly, right? Another thing is to not copy people, no matter what. Like, it's good to take inspiration, but what I tell people is if you don't know or you don't have access to that person's motivation, their network, and their budget, then no matter what you think you're seeing, it's not the full picture. You don't know what they're doing, right? So so with my company, for instance, I can say, right, in a couple of months, we're going to have this podcast out or this book out. And so, of course, everything that you see is going to be geared towards that book. And so you're not going to think, oh, okay, she stopped doing all these other things. She's now doing only this book, or she's now doing this book. You don't know what I'm doing. You don't know. And you're thinking, okay, she posts at 8 a.m. every morning. And you really think I'm sitting behind my phone or my computer with an alarm clock thinking, right, as soon as it goes 8 o'clock, I'm going to post. You don't know if I've scheduled this thing months in advance.
Right.
You don't know what I'm doing. So whatever it is you think you're seeing, if you don't know my motivation, you don't know my budget, you don't even know if I've got a PA or you don't know.
Right.
Then, and you're copying and you're going to be wondering, why is it not working for me? It's not going to work for you because it looks like we're doing the same thing. We're not doing the same thing, right? So there's that. And the fourth thing I would say is don't be afraid to ask questions. Seriously, don't be afraid. Like nobody is born knowing absolutely everything. The fact that you don't know something, yes, it might mean that you're ignorant about that thing, but it doesn't mean that you're stupid. And the reason that you're ignorant about that thing might be because up until that point, you've had no reason to know about it, right? I mean, if I told you now, I need you to publish a book within the next 6 months, you probably panic and you think, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what the steps are, but you don't know what the steps are because you haven't had any reason to do it. Right. You don't have any reason to know. You didn't study it. You haven't done it in real life. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think this is really sad. I find that a lot of women are just really frightened of asking questions because then you think, oh, they're going to think I don't know it. And I'm like, but you don't know it. Isn't it better to say, I don't know this thing, receive grace for it? I mean, some people are horrible and they're going to make you feel bad because you don't know something, but it's actually better that everyone knows I don't know this thing, then you act like you know, and then you land yourself with a huge bill or in jail because you made people believe something, you signed something, and it turned out you didn't know what you were signing. And tomorrow the taxman comes or it's something else, and they're accusing you of something you don't know what you're doing. What you don't have any hand in it. I remember, even with my firm as well, there have been authors who've come to me, and I put a contract in front of them, and they're signing it, and I'm like, "Did you read it? Do you understand what's on this?" And they're like, "No." And I'm thinking, why are you signing something you don't know? And they go, oh, I didn't want you to think I didn't know. And I'm like, this is going to come back and bite you in the behind tomorrow, because while I am not being able, this is a business arrangement. I'm not your friend. So this contract has been written in my favor. I need you to take this to your own lawyer and ask them if it's okay for you to sign it. Because if you come out 3 years from now, and this always happens in the media space, there's always, if you watch the news, there's always a musician, a singer, or somebody who comes out every year and cries that years ago they signed something that they didn't know wasn't good for them, but then they didn't receive advice. And so if they had, they would not have signed, and nobody can do anything. And it's like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen if you say, I don't understand this, and you ask questions? Absolutely. Really, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? So it's those 4 things. And they can also sign up with my coaching program.
That's right. So that's a great segue to ending an amazing conversation. We'll definitely have all your links and everything on the description, so they can know where to find you. Esther obviously is full of knowledge, has plenty of experience on every aspect where it comes to women in law and media. And it was just a pleasure having you on this podcast. I can't wait to see what the future holds for you and your company. You are just an amazing soul in general, and I just enjoy your stories. I mean, honestly, you have the best stories ever, and I wish we could share them all on here, but unfortunately we don't have that much time. But it was awesome having you, and I can't wait to see what this world has for you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.